Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports and Forever Rugby. It is a chilly Wednesday evening down in South Africa. We are 2 days away from Springbok Rugby, and almost more importantly for me, 3 days away from British and Irish Lions tour down in South Africa. The Lions are in town, the BOKS are in town, everybody's in town, and we're all shaping up for what is going to be a fantastic weekend of international rugby. But for tonight, over the next sort of half an hour, sort of 45 minutes, we'll see how we go. We're going to be discussing a couple of things. First of all, we're going to be talking about, is this the best Springbok generation ever? We're talking about Bulls signing two former BOKS. We're talking a little bit about the Georgian squad that has been announced to play against the Springboks on Friday, as well. It's a little bit about the Currie Cup and some of the action to expect this weekend. Let's just start selling in, I suppose. Please smash the like button. Let me know where you're watching from. What did you think of the match earlier? What did you think of the BOK team for Friday? It's the first time we've gone live since we've actually spoken about since the BOK team has been announced. So we'll definitely try and pull that up and we'll talk through the BOK team as well and sort of talk about why some picks are good, some picks are maybe not so good, and why some of the picks were actually made to begin with. But we're going to talk about the best Springbok generation ever to begin with, before we sort of look at the BOK team and stuff like that. And we'll start with a little bit of point of discussion. So, but basically, I was reading an article yesterday or today, and they're just talking about the amount of players, South African players, in and around World Rugby at the moment. And it is very, very impressive, to be honest. It's very, very impressive. And that also sort of linked towards a post that somebody made 2 years ago talking about the Springbok depth that they had in 2019 with the Rugby World Cup depth. And it was a whole chart and was going through sort of different, combinations and literally like naming 5 different teams and the type of players that would be able to be fielded in every one of them. And when you start doing that, you realize the unbelievable amount of depth that the Springboks currently have. And it's a very difficult thing to try and guess. I mean, for example, I can't really speak about much before sort of 2000 because I never really watched. I know you've watched clips and you obviously grew up being told about players and you watch full games like the 95 World Cup. I've watched every single game beginning to end and stuff like that. But it's very difficult to sort of talk about before that. And so genuinely people kind of get away with this by talking about the professional era, sort of from 1996 onwards, basically post that 95 win, when sort of rugby became a profession and sort of really sort of gained momentum. And I think what's quite interesting is that the greatest generation ever might not necessarily have the greatest players ever, because we're talking about the best talent in terms of the amount of talent. We're not talking about this being the best Springbok team that's ever been or that ever will be. But are we currently in the best era of Springbok rugby or South African rugby where we've got the largest amount of top class players? And I think that if we look at some of the players who've been left out of the squad at the moment, you kind of start to think that maybe there actually is a little bit of a merit to that argument, because we've named a 46-man squad for Georgia and for the British and Irish Lions, and yet there are players like Akka van der Merwe, like Jan Serfontein, like Johan Goosen, like Lizo Koboka, like Andre Esterhuizen, like Tyron Green, Wilco Lowe. Trying to think of other players who've been left out. I mean, something like Stephen Levis, who just led the Harlequins to a premiership title. There are some unbelievably good players who are not part of the Springbok squad. Marcel Coetzee not part of the Springbok squad. Look, I mean, current form, you can kind of understand why. But there are some sublime players in and around the world that are not part of the South African squad. And that's where I think that's sort of the talk about this being the greatest generation, because we talk about the depth that we have. I mean, somebody like Jason Jenkins, for example, who are people who thought was going to be a sort of a shoo-in for the BOKS squad. I mean, I think at the moment, I don't think we've ever had such good locks. I'll put it that way. Everybody sort of will always sort of go down and say that Bucky's Buerta and Victor Matfield were the greatest lock combination ever. People now sort of thinking that maybe even Etzebeth deserves to be called the best number 4 that the Springboks have ever had. But, Victor Matfield's always going to be sort of considered probably the best number 5 we ever had. But I don't think we have, and we might never ever have the depth that we do have locks in Franco Master, Archis Name, and Eben Etzebeth and Louis Diaga. I mean, as I think it was Squiz Rugby who was saying that the Springboks probably have 4 of the 5 best locks in the world at the moment. There are certain positions in the Springbok squad which the depth is unbelievable. And so it's interesting. I mean, because it's always, as I said, it's a difficult thing to quantify. But in the past, I think that we've definitely had some positions where we've been very lucky. But I think that always we've had positions where a couple of injuries and suddenly there's a big issue. And I think that at the moment there are very few positions in the Springboks at the moment where two injuries suddenly mean we've got a very weak player in that. I think that fly half could potentially be one of them, but I also think that that's always a very contentious one when it comes to fly half because I think we've got very different fly halves. But let me know what you think. I mean, what is the one position where you think if there are a couple of injuries we don't have depth at? And we'll go through them all. We're literally going to go 1 through to 15. We're going to discuss all the different positions Springboks have. We're going to look at the depth that they've got. So, I mean, if we're looking at, for example, let's just start at number 1. Literally number 1. You've got Steven Kitsoff. You've got Oxenchair. You don't have Lisa Walker because he hasn't actually been included in the squad. But you've got players that can play there like Thomas DeToy, like Kuni Oosthuizen. And then if you look at, like, for example, like tight heads, and you're looking at possibly comparing both sides, Wilco Lowe started the Premiership final, scored a try in the Premiership final. He does not make that box squad. I mean, this is a player who I think is a proper player. Very, very good scrummager. Maybe not good enough in the loose, which is maybe why he's been left out. But somebody like that, you've got somebody who's in a title-winning side, not making a 46-man Springbok squad. If you look at the second row, you've got Franco Mostert, Arkia Snyman, Lourdes de Jager, and Eben Etzebeth. You've got Marvin Uri in that squad. You've got one of the Dupree brothers who can potentially play at lock as well. You've got Nicholas Janssen from Rensburg. But then you also got players, as I say, Jason Jenkins, Stefan Levies. I mean, and we've got youngsters who are pushing through. Something like a Salman Murat as well, who I think is quite close to being ready for Springbok. Ruan Nokia, for example. So I mean, the tight five I think is definitely. I mean, and then we look at the hooker. So I've got a hooker. Aka van der Merwe has been one of the best, one of the stand-up performers in the Premiership for Sale Sharks. He's been in absolutely immense form, and yet he does not make the Springbok squad. And I mean, I think he was picked in the Guardians Premiership Team of the Season. The Premiership Team of the Season. They backed Aka van der Merwe as the best hooker in the Premiership. Now he doesn't get into the Springbok squad. Look, I think he should be in the Springbok squad, but I think that definitely probably ahead of Skara Intibeni. There's a little bit of history there, which is a bit of an issue between him and Rassie Erasmus. But you look at the hooker depth, and I think Bongi Mbonambi and Alco Marx are probably the two. I mean, is there another nation in the world with as good two hookers as those two? I think that the fact that Malcolm Marx was pushing the limits as being potentially considered one of the best hookers in the world, and then he got benched by Bongi Mbonambi. So those two are brilliant. And then look, South Africa has always had loose forwards pouring out of every single, nook, crevice, fanny, everything. You've got Dwayne Vermeulen, who was man of the match in the World Cup final. You've got Peter Steph Toy, who was voted the World Player of the Year. You've got Sia Khaleesi. But now you've also got players like Kwagga Smith, man of the match when he played against the All Blacks for the Barbarians. You've got Jasper Wiese, who's had a breakthrough season at the Premiership, and as a result has forced his way into the Springbok squad. I think he was rated second as the best in terms of the best number 8 in the Premiership this season by the same Guardian article. You've got the two Dupree brothers who've been absolutely immense. You've got something like Marco Verstappen who's been snapped up. You've got a lot of players who are suddenly playing overseas and very, very highly rated overseas. Renat Alstad, playing over in France. It's sublime the amount of depth we got. I think hooker Skamov maybe could be a potential area for concern. I think Kobus Reinach, Herschel Yankees, and Faf de Klerk are very good. After that, you start sort of wondering where do you go. You've got, Ambrose, your peers, you've got Jovan van Zyl. So they're in the Humbers part of the squad. I think Jaden Hendrickson, though, is going to become probably number 3. I personally think he'll push for number 3 in that spot. I mean, Flyhalf's the big one. It's Andre Pollard, who's the best played rugby player in the world. After that, you got Alton Yankees, who was voted the Super Rugby Player of the Decade for South Africa, and is one of the leading point scorers of all time in Super Rugby. Then you've got Morné Steyn, also one of the highest point scorers ever in Super Rugby history, won a Super Rugby title. Those are your 3 fly halves. I mean, after that, you go to Curran Bosch and maybe kind of drops off a little bit. But, I mean, your wings are insane. When you think you got... I mean, Apira Dianti, we lost Apira Dianti. South Africa lost Apira Dianti. You got banned. No idea what's going on there. We haven't had any update. The World Breakthrough Player of the Year gets banned 4 months before the World Cup. Makazulu Mapimpi goes and scores the first ever try in the World Cup. Ches and Colby probably established himself as one of the best players in the world in the next couple of months. Spoon Corsi is somebody who... I think if you look at his like try to game ratio, it's insane. I'll try and find it here if I can get it. But Spoon Corsi, whenever he plays for the Springboks, scores tries for fun, literally for fun. And now we've got a former Sevens World Player of the Year starting for the Springboks tomorrow. On Friday, and we don't and without Spoon Corsi and Mapimpi or Colby, and yet that's still the sort of the type of wing that the Boks will have. You know, you've got somebody like Apele Fassi who's very, very young and up and coming. Dylan Lates has been brilliant in France, was playing in the top 14 final. Doesn't get into the Boks squad. Tyron Green was one of the leading high scorers in the Premiership. He scored 8 tries this season. Played at fullback for the Harlequins in the final, winning in the final. He doesn't make the squad as one of the wings. And I'm not saying that he should or whatever, but I mean, that's the sort of depth. I mean, yeah, here we go. Spirit Corsi, he played 11 matches, 8 tries, 40 points in 11 matches, and he doesn't actually make the starting lineup for the Springboks. You know, you look at your centers. Look at inside center, for example. You've got Damien Day-Lindy, arguably one of the best inside centers in the world. Andre Esterhuizen is starting for the Harlequins in the Premiership final. Cornel Hendricks, the former inside center in the country, doesn't really make it. Frans Steyn, a 2-time World Cup winner, 2-time British and Irish Lions squad member. You know, somebody, I said, Esterhuizen doesn't even make it. Rohan Janssen from Rensburg, who's been very good for Sale Sharks, had a couple of injuries, but was very good. He doesn't make it. In the sense, you've got somebody like Jan Surfontaine who doesn't make the squad, but you still got Lakanya and Jesse Kriel. Wandisile Similani, one of the most promising players I've ever seen at a junior Springbok level. At full-back, you've got Willie Leroux, you've got Warwick Halant, you've got Damien Willemse, you've got Apele Fassi. It's unbelievable. We can talk about this for ages, but I don't think I've ever seen so many players at such a high level coming out of South Africa than we do at the moment. And I think that's why, you know, if we get it right, I mean, the problem is being the best team in the world, you know, it all comes down to can you have the best 15 players? Well, not necessarily the best 15 players, but can you put together the best performance of a team? But you have to have a really good 15 players. So I'm not saying that the Springboks right now are the best side. I'm not saying that the 15 players that will go out from the Springbok thing are all the best players in their position. I'm not saying that necessarily the Springbok side are the best Springbok side we've ever had. But I don't think we've ever had this depth. I don't think we've ever been able to cope with injuries as much as we have. So Derek Allen says, for me, the most skilled in best generation was the 1980s brand. As I said, I can't really comment. Didn't exactly watch too much then. Mapua is not as good as more. We'll get there as well. Contender Makwana says, I agree. There's no Galantis out. Yeah, I'm just talking about in general. You know, I mean, as I said, I can mention Dwayne from Muda. He's also currently injured. So just talking sort of in general, the amount of depth they have. But I think it's an incredible position for South Africa to be in, to be able to call on so many players. As I said, you can still call on Johan Goosen, Jan Surfontaine, Andre Esterhuizen, Tyron Green, Dylan Lates, Aka van der Merwe. Those are all players that the Boks could still call on when they have injuries, such as the depth in South African rugby at the moment. So it's an incredible position to be in. And I think that if you get it right, there's no reason why South Africa, first of all, cannot go and beat the British and Irish Lions. You know, it all comes down to whether we're going to be able to think, but there's no reason they can go out and win 2-1, 3-0. The big thing comes in the Rugby Championship. You know, can we now, after our World Cup, go on and actually put in a run? Because that's what New Zealand is on. That's what New Zealand have done. New Zealand are not just a side which can come together and win a single tournament, come together and win a single series. New Zealand have dominated rugby, dominated all the rugby championships. They've dominated lots of World Cups. I mean, back-to-back World Cups. Can the Springboks go back-to-back for the World Cups? That's how you establish yourselves as the best team ever. You know, you've got to be able to defend titles and go back-to-back and be able to win more than one trophy. At the moment, the Springboks had a phenomenal 2019 where they won... the championship as well as the World Cup. You know, so 2 massive trophies, but you've got to be able to you've got to be able to sort of back it up. You know, you've got to be able to do this more long term. You can't just have one single good year. I mean, at the moment, you know, you've got the New Zealand who have won 3 World Cups. You've got South Africa won 3 World Cups and stuff like that. But you go look at like the Tri Nations, the Rugby Championship, and New Zealand have played 76 games in the Tri Nation, games in the Tri Nation, won 52, and South Africa won just 28. You know, if you look at New Zealand and the Rugby Championship, since becoming the Rugby Champions, New Zealand played 42 matches and won 36. South Africa played 42 matches and won 19. You know, losing 19 as well. So it's these sort of records where having such good depth is really, really good and very, very important. But we need to start actually being able to put it on a more consistent basis, and we need to start actually dominating World Rugby. You know, it's all very well pitching up for a World Cup and winning 3 World Cups. Brilliant, cool. You can consider yourself one of the best rugby nations in the world. But this Springbok squad, these Springbok players, the environment that we have in the world is primed. It is primed for a South Africa coaching staff to be able to turn the side into a world beater for years to come. And that's the important thing. You know, we've got to make sure that this sort of golden generation where we have this incredible wealth of talent, we need to make sure that we can go on and win all the matches. You know, for the All Blacks, they had that sort of aura of the only match we have to worry about was playing against the Springboks in South Africa. Not even they kind of worried about us in New Zealand, but it was mostly in South Africa against the Springboks. That's their big game every year. We need to become like that, where, you know, the only game where we're sitting there thinking will be really, really tough, and the game that, you know, we probably accept if you lose is if you're losing away against New Zealand. But when you've got England coming here, you've got to beat them 3-0. When you've got Ireland coming here, you've got to beat them 3-0. Rugby Championship, you've got to be competitive. You know, you've also got to, and I also think that the All Blacks are very much in a transition period. They've got, you know, a lot of youngsters, quite a lot of players people don't really know a lot about. You know, so they're there for the taking. You know, I think that their dominance between 2011 and 2018-19 was phenomenal. They had an incredible good squad, and they dominated World Rugby for years. But that sort of generation is starting to move. You know, lots of question marks about the coaches, a lot of question marks about some of the players. So if there was ever a time for South Africa to become the force that we are and that we could be, it's got to be now. And that's why I'm really excited, because I think Rassie Erasmus is putting in structures to succeed. Not only that he has to succeed, but he's bringing in the right coaches. He's bringing in the pipeline. You know, he's building a foundation for us to really launch off and become a really, really good rugby nation. So to answer the first sort of the 20 minutes we've been talking about this, I think this is the best Springbok generation ever, because I think we've never had so many players of this sort of quality. Monica Salve says we could probably pick 3 teams that would be able to at least make the World Cup quarterfinals. Yeah, I mean, if I look at this graphic, which is a little bit off, it's definitely off. I think there's a lot of players that would be escalated, but their 4th team, their 4th 15 they had. This was back in 2019, by the way. So we still had Beeson Taurio, we still had Francois Lowe, etc., etc. Their 4th team had Lizo Kopoka, Akafana Merva, Trevor Nyakane, JD Schikkeling, Ruan Botha. Ruan Botha is another good player. Francois Lowe definitely should be higher. Jean-Luc Duprier, Ruan Ackerman, Ambrose Duprier, Rob Duprier. I don't really back the Rob Duprier shout. Roscoe Speckman, Raz Baklana, Francois Steyn, Francois Fenton, and Warwick Galant. That was the 4th team that they had picked. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's incredible players, and it'd be very interesting if you talk about if you had to sort of put all the players together and kind of sort of go in first 15, second 15, third 15. It should be very interesting. But yeah, so that's sort of just talk about that. But we'll move over to the Bulls and the signings, because that is part of the second part of the video. So the Bulls today announced the acquisitions of Ruan Combrink and Lionel Mapu. As a Lions fan, I am absolutely seething, because we have watched as Jake White goes and brings back everybody under the sun, including players who would add incredible amount of value to the blooming Lions. I've been calling it out for weeks and months, and saying that the Lions have got a very talented squad, but you've got to bring in youngsters. And the Bulls are bringing in players. And look, the Bulls are getting a lot of flack. And you know, a lot of people saying, oh, well, the Bulls don't develop anybody. They just buy everything. At the end of the day, you can be a Southampton in football where you produce a lot of players. You can be a Manchester City who buy a lot of players and win a lot of trophies. As a Lions fan, I'm bored of sitting there saying, well, at least we develop our players. You know, we need to start winning. We've got to start winning. That has to be the thing. And that's what the Bulls are doing. The Bulls are saying, you know what, we've got youngsters. They'll come through. But until then, we're going to go and sign the best players that we can at the moment and bring them up and start winning trophies. And they were 18 minutes away from winning 3 trophies within 9 months because they did that. So as much as people can say, oh, they buy players and they buy success, it's success. And as a youngster, maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not going to get opportunities at the Bulls, but then you see Ruan Nokia coming through. You see Savino Jacobs coming through. You see Madosh Tamwe coming through. You see Albert Lowe coming through. You see, Mornay Smith getting an opportunity. You see a lot of these players, and suddenly you're thinking, well, maybe actually, they obviously, if you're good enough, you actually can make it at the Bulls. So as a youngster, you're going to sit there thinking, well, I can go to the Bulls and I can win trophies, or I can go to the Lions, become a bit of a whipping boy, and be part of a process. So yeah, as I said, I think the Bulls are getting it dead right, and I think that these are going to be interesting players. So in terms of where these players have been, Lionel Mapu's actually joining from the third tier of French rugby. It was a very, very strange decision, because he was at Stade Francais in the top 14, and he made the switch to the third tier of French rugby. So yeah, it was a strange sort of decision, and I think a lot of it was sort of COVID pandemic, and he wasn't maybe getting opportunities, and he wasn't really playing. So he was really struggling to try and get a new contract. So they were kind of the only people who took them up. But at the end of the day, he's 32 years old. He's played 14, I think he's got 14 caps for the Springboks. He was a brilliant part of that Lions tour, of the Lions side. Went over to Japan, was really, really good. So I think there's a very good player there. I think he did play a reasonable amount for Stade France. So there's definitely a player in there for Lionel Mapu. And I think that what Jake White's looking for is depth. He said that we don't have enough quality across the park. Because at the end of the day, whilst they've got some very good youngsters, David Creel, Richard Creel, Shavina Jacobs, it's a case of who can fill in the goal, who can make a big difference if those sort of players get injured. So these are also two very versatile players. So Ruan Combrink, I think last played for Stade Francais. I could be wrong. I was trying to sort of figure out where he's been sort of playing. He was in Japan for a while. In fact, I think I'm not sure if he's coming from Japan directly, or where he was coming from. No, I was trying to find it earlier. I couldn't really find much about it. But I think he's going to be a fantastic signing. I think he is. I mean, he's a player for me that didn't really reach his potential, because I think at one stage he was in such good form, looking so good, and then kind of went overseas and it sort of just pitted away, really. But he's a hell of a player, is Ruan Combrink. And you think about these two players, what do they bring to the Bulls? First of all, they bring experience. They're both over 30. Okay, so they're not going to be there for long. They're looking sort of 3-4 year contracts. They're both Springbok capped. More to the point, they're versatile. Lionel Mapu can cover wing and centre as easily. Ruan Combrink covers the entire back three. He can play in either wing. He can play at full back. He's got enough power to play at blooming centre if he really needs to. He doesn't really play. But you also look at some of the unique things that they bring. Ruan Combrink arrives with goal kicking. He can slot a 61-meter kick at Highfield if he needs to. Mornay Steyn is retiring. You've got Johan Goosen. Imagine having Johan Goosen and Ruan Combrink as your two goal kickers. Lionel Mapu is a very quick player, very good, skillful player, sevens experience. These are players who have been around, not only sort of in the rugby game, but around the world. So to be able to have Gio Aplon, Ruan Combrink, Lionel Mapu, telling Shavina Jacobs, Madosh Tamwe, David Creel, Richard Creel, some of these players, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, try this, try that, stuff like that. That is what Jake White is doing, is that he's bringing a bunch of mentors and players who can still contribute, because I think they still can contribute. But he's trying to build a squad where he can switch players in and out as he wishes, and there's no drop in quality. And very few sides in the country can do that. The Lions definitely cannot do that. Jumbo Lengo starting this weekend. He's looking good to start this weekend. And I'm not saying Jumbo Lengo is bad, but it's a step down from Cornels Hussain, Stian Pienaar, and Rasmus Klammer. So I think that's very good signings. I think that Jake White's also had a habit of being able to get the best out of players. I think Mornay Steyn, took him a couple of months, and look at the rugby he's playing. Dwayne Vermeulen's playing really well. Look at what he's done with Cornel Hendricks. I think he's got a knack, Jake White, of getting the best out of players, and he's very good at identifying players who will fit his system. So it's not necessarily just going and getting the best players, but players who will fit his system. That's why he goes and signs like really big locks, and he goes and signs players who he knows that he can fit into his system. And that's why the Bulls can chop and change, and yet everybody knows what their role is, and does their role very well, and they're very, very efficient side. They're a very well coached side of the Bulls. So was what Ruan Combing was known for. And Lionel Pooh, there was nothing better than seeing that little celebration coming in when he hit when he hit a gap. So I think that they're going to be a very, very interesting addition to this Bulls side. Harold Forster, obviously, another former Lion. At the moment, as I said, it's an Lions fans heartbreaking just watching all our players going now back to the Bulls, and you just know they're going to do very well. So yeah, it's some very intelligent signing there from the Bulls, and they just keep signing. I don't think they're going to stop now either. They've in the last this week they're going to have added Ruan Combing, Lionel Pooh, Johan Goosen, Jacques du Plessis, and I'm missing. That's someone here. But that's just like who's going to walk into the side right now at the moment. Harold Forster. So I'm very interested to see how those two go. I think there will be good signings though. Right. So the Springbok squad has been announced for Friday. So we'll talk about them, and we'll talk a bit about the Georgia squad as well. Let me bring up. What is this? No. Let me just pull up the Springbok squad on the screen now, and we'll talk about what we can have a look at on for Friday. But let me know what you think of the Springbok squad. We've all had a chance to sort of see it. We've all had a chance to sort of reflect on it and stuff like that. Let me know what you think of the squad down in the comments, while I'll busy bring it up. There we go. So that is the team that will play against Georgia on Friday. A couple of interesting calls, and there's two debutants in Apelele Fassi and Roscoe Speckman, the two wings. Apelele Fassi was not supposed to play, and neither was Jesse Creel. Lakanya and Marcus Pimpi were supposed to start this weekend, but as a result of being in close contact with somebody with COVID-19, they are currently isolating. As a result, Apelele Fassi and Jesse Creel come into the team. But yeah, let's look at it through 1 through sort of 15. Oxenchair gets another test start. The last time he played was back in 2019 against Wales in the USA, where we lost. That was his first and only cap for the Springboks. So he's back in the four after 3 years, and credit to him because he's been brilliant down in the country. I think him and Stephen Kitzel have been by far the best loose heads down here. Mongi Benambi keeps his starting place from the World Cup final. Malcolm Marks will cover him off the bench though. And Trevor Nyakane gets a start, which I'm very excited to see. I think that he's got the potential to actually start those Lions tests. I'd like to see him starting because I'd like to see him playing well enough to deserve to start. And he's a fantastic player. He's a wonderful human being, Trevor Nyakane, and hopefully this is kind of the opportunity for him. He just needs to stay fit. Touch all the wood in the blooming world. He needs to stay fit, because if he stays fit, I think Trevor Nyakane is a sublime player. Eben Etzebeth, Franco Mostert will start in the locks. And we haven't gone with a 6-2 split, so Marvin Orie will cover either lock. Often we kind of it makes sort of sense for him to come up from Franco Mostert as a line-out specialist, but Franco Mostert, we know, has got an engine, so it wouldn't surprise me they kind of just tell Eben Etzebeth to just empty the tank, and then you can go from there. And then we've got Chieklisi as expected, captain, Priestess Toy as expected. Kwaka Smith's quite a cool call at 8th man. I'm glad, because I think he's somebody who hasn't had a lot of opportunity in the Springboks, but I'm a massive fan. Big work rate, maybe not the biggest player. I'm a big fan of trying something a bit different. We saw how it paid off with Chesden Colby. So I'm keen to see how Kwaka Smith goes at 8th man. We've got Jasper Wiese, who's much more in the mould of Dwayne Vermeulen coming off the bench. Kubus Reinach has been fantastic form over there in France, so he'll get a start. Andre Pollard will need to try and prove a little bit of fitness and form on Friday. We spoke about the wings. France Day starting at inside centre. It's a bit of a meh pick. I like France Day. I think his legs are kind of going. I don't think he's particularly fast anymore, and I'm not sure he's got 50, 60 minutes in him. So I think that we probably will see Alton Yankee swapping out with him and Andre Pollard going to inside centre. Jesse Creel gets a chance. I'm keen to see how he goes. Billy Leroux is very important, and obviously we need to sort of see what form he's in. And then on the bench, very, very straightforward bench, really. Malcolm Marks, Stephen Kitzel, Franz Mahurba. That could very well be a starting test bench. Marvin Orie comes in, very good line specialist, very solid. You kind of know what you're getting with him. Not going to risk Lord Joggy yet. Not risking Arcus Neyman and Damien not quite ready to play yet, but should be ready soon. I'm surprised they didn't actually get a chance to give Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg a chance. Herschel Yankees has been cleared, so he will start off the bench, and Damien Willemse will cover the rest. So I think it's a very intelligent side. Let's see what you think. John and Nelson, imagine we lose. That will happen. What will happen then? If we lose, we lose, and we sit there and say maybe this wasn't the best team. I think it's a good enough team to win, but I also think that you've got to look at, if players are 50-50 fitness-wise, the last thing you want to do is play them against the Georgian side with absolutely nothing to lose. Sean Raphael says, for me, it's a good mix of experience and young players. Tioxi, I love that we are playing with a 5-3 split. I like having Alton on the bench. I also like having a flyer from the bench. Also, I just like to have playmakers. You know, I think it's. I mean, if you bring in Alton Yankees for France Stain, you know, France Stain can be fly half, but I think then you've got Pollard, Vililu, and Alton Yankees. Those are all playmakers. Those are all players you can kick very well. They're very intelligent players. So, you know, if you want to see a game or if you want to try and spark something, having all three of those players in the park at the same time is a fantastic combination. Jada Blanche says, solid team, even though it's not our strongest. Would still like to see Marcel at 8. Well, I think Marcel actually needs to kind of play himself back into some form, because I thought he was horrible against Benetton. I mean, he had 2 brilliant games when he first came back. Was pretty poor against Benetton. It'd be interesting to see. He'll have a go next week against British Irish Lions, so he'll have a nice opportunity to try and say, you should have included me. I played Fassi 2 week against powerful Georgian wings, Oscar Roscoe Speckman. Yeah, well, we're going to see, I suppose. You know, it's sink and swim as international rugby, so it'll be interesting to see how they cope. And I'll pull up the stats of the Georgian wings, and we'll go to the Georgian side as well. Some big boys. But I mean, if you look at the wings for Georgia, I think also, by the way, an 18-year-old fullback for Georgia, so that should be quite interesting to see how he goes. Jada Blush says, I hope Reno can have an absolutely smashing game to cement him above Hershey Yankees. Yeah, Hershey Yankees has been struggling a little bit. I thought he's become a lot better in the last sort of month. I think we're sort of hitting form at the right time. But that's going to be a very, very big battle. I think Hershey Yankees will be quite aware of the fact that he needs to really sort of come to the party, because we haven't quite seen the Hershey Yankees that we saw in 2019, which, you know, was so good and a brilliant player of impact. It's a nice problem to have, though. We all know that Faf de Klerk is our number 1 scrum half, so these two have a bit of a dogfight to see who will feature there. So if we're looking at the 2 wings for Georgia and what these 2 players have to worry about, we've got Demir Tabladze. First of all, full discretion. I'm going to be in it for Mayor and Fire. Some of these names for the Georgians are horrendous to try and pronounce. I've been trying to practice a few of them, but I mean they really aren't great for a non-Georgian speaker. But you've got Demir Tabladze, who's 21 years old, is 1.93 and 89 kgs. Plays for the Leo Saracens in Georgia. He's got 2 caps. He's starting at number 11, and number 14 is Aki Tapatsadze, who's 23 years old, 1.84 and 88 kg. So not small by any means. He's got 5 international caps. Interestingly enough, he's also got 11 international caps. He's got 9 tries in 11 games. And then the fullback is David Ninashvili, who is 18 years old and currently playing for Lyon. So very interesting to see how those outside backs go for Georgia. This Georgian side, and I'll actually pull it up now. And I'll try and sort of identify a couple of players that are worth watching. So if we put it there, is that probably not big enough for anybody to see. Okay, well we all know our Springbok squad. So I'm going to put our Springbok squad at the bottom there, make it that big so we can still see it, and then I'll make our Georgia squad quite big. Cool. We've got an official preview coming out tomorrow, so I'll sort of be going a little bit more into depth with that there. But some players that are worth watching for Georgia are number 5, Konstantin Mikataudze. First, he's played for the Barbarians for a start. He's played for Montpellier. Still plays the top 14. He's 127 kgs. 2 meters tall, 127 kgs. Which is why it would be no shock to you to know that Jake White actually signed him back from Montpellier. So he's an absolute giant. Other players look for out for the outside center. Inside center. Mirita Rakadza. He's the captain. He's 28 years old, 94 kgs. 76 caps, the most cap player in the lineup. He's got 12 international tries, as well as, and he's made his debut at 19. He's been playing international rugby for 10 years, pretty much. And another really good player, interesting player to look out for is Beka Sagidadze at number 6 there. Him and number 15, Ninashvili, they have both just signed for Lyon. Very, very exciting young players. Also number 13 outside centre there, Kveseladze. He plays at Blister, actually, and has actually had 5 premiership appearances. So a lot of these players playing in the top 14 and stuff like that. But I don't want to go too much into the depth because that's kind of what we're going to be doing in the preview tomorrow. But this Georgian side, a couple of quick facts. Their average age is less than 23. It's 22.7. That is the average age of the Georgian starting lineup on Friday. The pack weight is sitting at around 900 kgs. With I think not a single player in that pack is less than 100 kgs. The lightest player in the Georgian pack is the number 7, Beka Saginadze, who's 103 kgs. That is the lightest player in that pack. You've got 118 and 117 kg props. Both locks are 120 kgs plus. It's going to be a hell of a physical experience. It should be quite a lot of fun. Rapimpi and Corsi still there, so I think we are blessed with depth, as well as Chesney when he comes in. Wings is going to be our weak spot on Friday. I just know it. Well, look, they're both on debut, so I don't think we can be too hard on them on Friday. I think they're both very exciting on attack. I think Apele Fassi, it's not ideal that he's going to be starting his first Springbok game on the wing, which is somewhere he hasn't played a lot of rugby. So I don't think it's ideal. I'm very keen to see what Roscoe Speckman can do. I'm keen to see what he can do with a bit of space. So I think that they'll sort of feed off Billy quite well. The problem is that Georgia play 10-man rugby. Let's be honest. We know what we're going to see from them. They've got a massive pack. I mean, they've got even the forwards off the bench. The forwards off the bench. 106 kgs, 180 kgs, 125 kgs, 118 kgs, 115 kgs. They're ginormous. So it's not going to be pretty rugby. So I'm not sure how much we're going to actually get to see our wings on Friday. But Georgia won't be a threat as we have a solid pack. Look, I think they're going to be a big pack. I think it really will be kind of sort of sink or swim for a couple of players. I would just like to see BOKS play some running rugby. Johnny Nelson says, if we don't take this game seriously, we'll struggle. All the M's in ZE. Yeah, except for Gagari, and I think there's another one. It's just going to... Some of these names are horrendous to try and pronounce. I really need to sort of do a bit of practicing. Sean O'Farrell says, Georgia, in my opinion, have been felt behind with Europe international rugby. They've had it easy in rugby Europe and still they're not started to put them in the top tournament. Yeah, it's frustrating because I think that people have been very keen to try and get Japan involved as much as possible. It's difficult to sort of see where Georgia fits in. A lot of people are saying that Italy needs to kind of be dropped off. The problem is that if you take out Italy out of the Six Nations, and I wouldn't like to see it because I think there's some very nice Italian players are starting to come through, and they've got quite a nice young side. How long do you give Georgia? So say you take out Italy and you put in Georgia, how long do you give Georgia to be able to make the step up? And be able to sort of play Six Nations? How long do you get before you sort of go back to Italy? Because obviously you put Georgia in Six Nations tomorrow and they'll lose all 5 games. Probably. They might not, but they probably would. And then do you sort of say, right, you've got 3 or 4 seasons, do you have promotion relegation every year with them in Italy? But, they're never going to be a side which are going to contend with the big players unless they start playing against the big teams. As a Georgia side, if you're not playing against Tier 1 nations throughout the year, you're not going to be able to beat Tier 1 nations. You can't wait every 4 years to be able to play against the Springboks, to be able to play against the Islanders. So it's very difficult. And that's where World Rugby needs to step in and need to make sure that a lot more games are happening. And that's why British and Irish Lions tours are quite nice, because we're going to have USA versus England. We're going to have Wales versus Canada. We're going to have more opportunity for these players, these sort of teams to play against top sides, because that's the only way they'll grow. You cannot grow if you're not playing against some of the best teams in the world. So hopefully this will be a nice experience for Georgia. They've got quite a nice junior setup, and we've got quite a nice working relationship with Georgia. So we do often see their juniors come out here. So it should be good fun. I'm keen to sort of see how we go. I don't think it's going to be a game where we can take too much to heart, because obviously a lot of players will still need to come in, and a lot of players are still getting used to life in a Springbok camp. But it should just be an opportunity to see the Springboks back out on the field. Jay Barnes says we will win comfortably, and Johnny now says, do you think Ox and Trevor will struggle against the Georgian scrum? I think Trevor's a very good scrummager, so I don't think he'll have any issues. I think Ox battles when it comes to scrum time. It's probably his weakest aspect. He's sublime in the loose. He's phenomenal in the loose, and he's a very good ball carrier, very good defensively as well. But scrum time will be his biggest test, and I think this will be a baptism of fire. I know it's the second game, but he's going to be up against 170 kg Georgie Melekidze, who plays for Stade Francais and has 27 international caps. So it's not like they're bad props they're going to be up against. So it'll be a nice test for them. I'm very, very keen to see how they go. And that pretty much wraps it up for tonight. We'll be live tomorrow for fan form preview of the Lions game. British and Irish Lions expected to name their side tomorrow, as well as the Emirates Lions, who will be naming their side at 5 o'clock. So we'll be live for that tomorrow. I know that Lakanya will be with me. I'm still waiting to see if anybody else is going to be joining us, but at least we'll be us two. We'll probably be live at about 8 o'clock South African Standard Time. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get a little notification when we do go live. Smash like on the video. We're going to have a preview up for tomorrow from the Springboks. We're going to have reaction from the Currie Cup earlier with Sean Everett and John Dobson. We've got those press conferences that will get up soon as well. And then tomorrow we've also got the Springbok pre-match press conference that we'll have up tomorrow as well. If you are a member, you get access to the press conference pretty much immediately. As soon as that press conference comes to an end, you go straight up on the channel and all the members can watch it. So if you'd like to get access to the press conferences as soon as they happen and as soon as they come out, then you can click the link in the description there or in the pinned comment, and you can become a member of the channel. Thank you very much. Everybody have a fantastic evening. I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Please do come out, hang out for the fan forum. It should be a lot of fun, especially when you're talking about front row. Lacanio is a prop and a scrum coach as well, so he should have a lot of insight as to the front row battle that we will see on Friday. Please do keep safe. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you guys all very soon.